Hello everyone and happy Friday. This is Marcy from the Strategic Planning, Communications and Project Management team. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for our ITS Spotlight Live, where we hope you get to learn a little bit of something new. Just a reminder that you can submit questions at any time using the form on our ITS Spotlight page, and we will go over those questions at the end of the presentation. Now I'm going to introduce our speaker. Jennifer Pusateri is from the Center for Enhancement of Learning and Teaching, also known as CELT, who works in conjunction with ITS. Jennifer is going to speak with us today about accessibility and universal design. It is all yours, Jennifer.
Great, thank you. Hi everybody, so my name is Jennifer Pusateri and I am with CELT, and we're going to look a little bit today at some of the issues around accessibility and universal design on a college campus setting. So let's go ahead and take a look. The first slide I have on here, this is just a shameless plug, to be honest with you, but we do have office hours at CELT, and we've actually joined forces with ITS, the Academic Technologies and Faculty Engagement, which is like the longest name ever. Academic Technologies and Faculty Engagement. And we've joined together for office hours, and there are several things that we can help people with during office hours, but these are just some of those. And we're also happy to help faculty and staff that just have anything they would just need a little extra help with as far as instruction or instructional technology is concerned. So that is my contact information. If there's something that you are wanting to know about universal design for learning, how to include accessibility in courses or course materials, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email. At the bottom is my Twitter handle, so I'm fairly active on Twitter and would love to hear from you there as well. So my position at CELT really is sort of between three different organizations. So I'm housed at CELT, which is of course the Center for the Enhancement of Learning and Teaching. The DRC, the Disability Resource Center, is another organization on campus that I work with. And I'm also involved with ITS as well. So sort of the area that CELT focuses on is really faculty, making sure that faculty have everything they need as far as their instruction goes. The DRC, of course, concentrates on students and getting students whatever it is that they need as far as accommodations in the classroom and so forth. And then we all know what ITS does, which is pretty much everything. And so they address the needs of faculty, students, and staff, of course. And then this area here in the middle is sort of where my position lives. And so universal design and universal design for learning are both areas that I'm really here to handle for the university. So let's just talk for a minute about what universal design is. It actually started in architecture in the early 80s. And this is sort of along with the switch over with ADA accessibility, as far as folks who are handicapped and need some help getting around, need to be able to get in and out of environments that the rest of the people are able to get to. So that accessibility was key. And universally designing is designing products and environments and instruction for everyone, not just for the people who look like you, but everyone. And so sometimes you would have to make some modifications in order to do that. And when you do make those modifications for the folks that need it, you give those to everyone. You make those available to everyone universally, if you will. And it actually ends up being very beneficial for a lot of folks. And you'll see in the picture there, this is a staircase that's designed to have a built-in ramp. So it was built ahead of time. It was sort of in the planning process, they decided to put that in. And this is just a few of the principles of universal design as far as product design and environment design goes. Equitable use, obviously you see the automatic doors at the grocery store. Many a time those have saved me from dropping groceries. And a lot of these things come in very handy for the rest of the folks who don't necessarily need them, but it's really helpful. Now, universal design for learning sort of started to begin evolving in the 90s, and they took the idea of universal design and sort of said, well, what if we applied this to a school setting and we really addressed the needs of all of our learners, including students that have special needs? within the general classroom setting. What would that look like? And so they started to work with assistive technology so that students who maybe had some kind of a physical impairment where they were not able to verbalize whatever it is that they needed, they could use assistive technology to be able to do that, and that would give them the access to the classroom environment. And so one of the catchphrases that they use a lot with Universal Design for Learning is, what is essential for some can be good for all. So as far as accessibility goes on the campus, it's really not as difficult as it may originally sound to make all of your course materials accessible. There are a few small changes that can be made, and when those are made, they can really have a huge impact on students and on students' achievement. So I've put together sort of a top 5 list, and we didn't have time for top 10 lists, but I've put together a top 5 list of 5 different things that you can change that are fairly simple to change that'll start to make your documents and your course materials more accessible. So let's take a look. The first thing is using high contrast colors. So this is sort of a no-brainer, but really sometimes when we get to designing things and we want them to look fancy or colorful, we sort of can leave this part out, and it can become very tricky for folks who have visual impairments to be able to see. And so making sure that we have a high contrast between the colors that we're using for our background and our font is going to be essential. And if you're just not sure, if it's one that looks like it might be, it might have high contrast, but you're not, I don't know, there is a website that you're able to utilize to check that. And it's actually linked here, but I don't know that you'll have access directly to that link. But if you just Google WebAIM Color Contrast Checker, and AIM stands for Accessible Instructional Materials. WebAIM Color Contrast Checker, and it will pull up that website for you, and you can check to see if the contrast is okay on your documents. Number 4 is using built-in headings for structure. So I got to be honest, when these started to appear magically in my Microsoft Word, I had no idea what they were. I just thought they were trying to make my life easier, because I'm sure it's all about me over at the Microsoft. But what these are really for is creating documents that have a natural structure to them. And the way that it works is that when screen readers, students who use screen readers are trying to sort of read through a document, if someone has used the built-in headings for the structure, so they have made the captions using the caption piece, and they have made the title using the title button, and if they've done that, then a screen reader is able to sort of visually scan a document. We would do that. Those of us who are sighted would do that. We would just sort of scan a document and look for the headers and determine which part we wanted to read first. Well, it's very difficult to do that when you're using a screen reader unless you have used the built-in headings. So if you use those, instead of just highlighting your text and making it bigger or smaller or bolding it, just for effect, if you utilize these headings, the built-in headings, it's going to really make your documents a lot more accessible for folks who are using a screen reader. And actually, let me go back just for one moment, because this is a screenshot of what those look like in Microsoft Word. And then the following is what they would look like in Google Docs. So you would have to go up to the Format tab, paragraph styles, and so on and so forth. And then that will show you how to access those headings in Google Docs. So number 3 is talking about your links that you put in documents and on websites. When you are putting a link in, a lot of folks have sort of been told that you should put the entire link, right, the www.blablabla.com, because then that makes it so that later, if for some reason you had typed it wrong or whatever, you could go back and access that and actually physically type it in. And while I can understand that, as far as using screen readers goes, it's much, it's very interesting actually, and we're going to listen to it in just a minute, the way that a screen reader will read that link. It doesn't just say, hey, this is a link. It will actually read it out loud. So I'm going to see if I can click on that video here so that we can hear this. So this is going to read a portion of a document that has a link all typed out, and you'll kind of hear what it sounds like.
Heading level 1. Pick your perfect beach paradise. Left parent example taken from http://www.expedia.com/daily/theme/vacation/beach.
Okay, so that's really annoying, right? So if you were someone who was using a screen reader as the only way that you were able to access a document, it could take forever if there were tons of links and you had them all spelled out. So we are going to say no to this, and we are not going to do it that way. And then other folks will put this sort of click here button, right? We're going to save people the time of looking at the whole entire link all typed out, and we'll just say click here. They will click that and then they'll go straight to it. Well, the problem is whenever we're hiding these in documents, when we're putting click here's in documents, then it's very difficult for a screen reader to sort of differentiate between links. It will just say link, click here, end link. And so if you had forgotten what was said before, you wouldn't remember what that link was, and it can become very tricky. So we're going to say no to that as well. The way that screen readers really prefer to be able to read links is if you use sort of a descriptive title. So here's an example of the same link, but what I've done is I've just put what the actual link goes to. It goes to an article called Checklist, What to Consider When Looking at Assistive Technology. So when the screen reader would be reading over that, it would say link, checklist, what to consider when looking at assistive technology, end link. And so now, as a person who's trying to read this utilizing a screen reader, now I kind of know where I'm going, and that's going to be very helpful. And so I do want us to hear what that sounds like now, if it's just going to read what the actual link is going to.
On what you'd like to do. Here are a few ideas to get you started. Bullet love the nightlife. Consider link Cancun and link Jamaica and link, or link South Beach, Florida and link.
So that's much quicker and much simpler for the person utilizing a screen reader. Let's see if I can get to our next slide. So number 2 on our top 5 tips list is adding alt text to all images. So when screen readers are going through a document, when it comes across an image, if the image does not have an alternative text built into it already, then it will just simply say image. And so sometimes images are just decorative, you know, if we're putting something like a cute little meme or something on your document that's really not important to the content but is just there for visual effect, then that's fine. You can leave that as image. You could also, sometimes people will say decorative image for their alt text, just so that the person using a screen reader doesn't think, well, I wonder if I missed something on that image back there that had no alternative text. Even if there's text in the image, like the example that we have up right now, where it says there are actually words on there, right? So strategic networks, how, effective networks, why. The screen reader doesn't read those as words. It reads the entire thing as one image. So we want to go ahead and add alternative text. And it just gives people who are using screen readers a brief description of what's in the image. It doesn't have to be fancy. It's just sort of giving them that information, because a lot of our information is being transmitted visually. And so if we're putting things in a document that have images that are carrying a lot of content, the images themselves are part of the content, then we need to make absolute sure that we are adding alternative text. So over to the right, you'll see where it says without alt text, this will read as image. But if I have put some alt text in, now this will not show up. If you were looking at this visually, you wouldn't see the alternative text on a page. It's sort of hidden in digital land. So you wouldn't see it, but the folks who are using a screen reader, when the cursor came across that image, instead of just hearing image, this would say, image of the brain with 3 different colored sections. A blue section is labeled strategic networks, how. A green section is labeled effective networks, and so on and so on. So adding alt text is not that difficult. Usually what you need to do is just right-click on an image, and then after that you'll select Format Image and Edit Alt Text. And then it pops up with this little box. It even gives you sort of a prompt there that tells you what to do. How would you describe this object and its context to someone who is blind? And they don't really want you to, you don't need to put paragraphs. This doesn't need to have flowery, fancy poetry language. You're just very clearly stating what is in the image, so that the folks using a screen reader are able to really access that information. And so if you do that, then, and if you save your image to your pictures, like on your documents on your computer. If you save them to your pictures, then as long as the alternative text is attached digitally to that, then every time you include that picture in another document, it will have the alternative text already there. So you really only need to do it one time, which is kind of nice. And finally, our number one of our top 5 list is adding closed captioning to all videos. So closed captioning is absolutely essential. Obviously, students who are hearing impaired are going to have some real difficulties when it comes to trying to get along in classes at a university setting. A lot of the instruction at universities is done by lecture. And so if you are a student with hearing impairment, that's going to be a huge barrier for you. But what we can do as far as creating videos, so if you came to the Faculty Media Depot and created a video down here for your course, then you would want to put some closed captioning on that so that your students who have hearing impairments would really be able to access that information as well. And then the great thing about adding closed captioning to videos is it ends up helping other people as well. So students with dyslexia or other reading difficulties, having that text there at the bottom can really help them as far as retaining the information and having access to that. People with attentional difficulties, that sort of keeps them on track as far as if they were not paying attention for a second, and they can look back and then there we go. The information's right there. Students that have high anxiety sometimes can get overwhelmed when they're watching videos or when they're in a lecture setting. And that will really help them to catch up on the information if for some reason they were a little anxious. And then our English language learners would really be helpful for them to have the text on the screen as well. So when we're putting this stuff into place for students with hearing impairments, we're actually ending up helping quite a few students in our classroom. And then using videos, if you upload a video to YouTube, YouTube is now adding captioning to pretty much all of its videos. Sometimes it will not add it if it's over a certain amount of time, like I want to say an hour-ish. But it will add that captioning for you, and it's doing that through sort of an auto captioning. But you always want to go back and double check to make sure that it caught everything correctly. Depending on how you speak and if you have some kind of like an accent or a dialect of some sort, sometimes that can kind of mess up the words a little. So I always suggest that people go back in and check to make sure that it's accurate. And that's not too hard to do. So if you are on YouTube and you have uploaded a video, you would just go and open your video within your account. And down here at the bottom, you click on the Edit Video button. That'll take you to this screen where you click on Subtitles/Closed Captioning. Then if your video is in English, you would click English. If it is in Spanish, you would obviously click Spanish. And then that takes you to this Edit piece, where you click Edit, and then you're able to click on the individual parts of the video and edit that as needed. And then when you're done, all you need to do is click Publish and you're all set. So our top 5 ways to make docs accessible. Number 5 was using high contrast colors. Number 4 is using built-in headings for structure. Number 3, making links descriptive. Number 2, adding alternative text to all images. And number 1, adding closed captioning to all videos. So if you're able to put those 5 things in place, you're going to just really be opening up the content of your class for a lot of students, and that's really what we're here for. We're here to educate all students and to do that in an equitable way. So that is all the information that I have today for the presentation, but I know we're able to take some questions, and so we're going to go ahead and start out with these questions that are up and ready to go. So I'm going to read those aloud, read the question aloud, and then I'll give you a little bit of an answer. So the first question is, in your opinion, what do you think the university excels at the most regarding accessibility and universal design? Well, first of all, the university has a universal design consultant. Not all universities have that. Sometimes that gets sort of thrown in with the Disability Resource Center folks, and they're expected to help faculty with things like that. Sometimes they don't really have anyone looking at the accessibility, and there are actually universities in the country that have been sued for not being ADA compliant with videos and captioning and things like that. So it's a real issue, and University of Kentucky is taking steps on that, and so that's one great thing that we're able to do here. A second thing is that I've found that the staff is really interested in making their documents accessible. And again, that's not always the case. You don't always have faculty who are really interested in opening up their content to all students. They sort of have a, well, it's my way or the highway mentality, and I really haven't seen that at UK. So that's wonderful. Having that attitude and that willingness to make those changes is incredible. Let's see, the second question is, what areas of improvement is your team focused on currently? So we are in development right now with the ATFE, I've got to remember that whole name, Academic Technology Faculty Engagement, with the ATFE and CELT together. We are putting on some workshops, and so we've been working on those. We've got a couple coming up here in the next few weeks. And most of those workshops, if they're not specifically about universal design or accessibility, it is always woven in there. Both CELT and ATFE are very conscious of accessibility issues within education, and we're making sure that we are addressing those needs as well. So you would get a lot of great information if you came out to one of those. So is faculty generally aware that they need to make their courses accessible, or do you have to reach out to them? So it sort of depends. I think most faculty, I don't know, I don't think that they would say that they're not aware of it, but I would say that likely if they have not received a letter saying that they have a student who needs those things, that they maybe have not put that in their courses yet. I haven't talked to all faculty, obviously, but I think that typically, unless they have had a student in the past that has needed something like captioning or needed accessibility measures as far as documents and screen readers and stuff, if they have not had to do that, then they may just not know that that's something that they need to do. And of course, we're willing to help with that at CELT. But a lot of times, faculty will work with the Disability Resource Center if it's something that they're just overwhelmed and they have no idea really how to address that. So we're able to help with that, as well as the Disability Resource Center. The next question is, what is the #1 thing you wish people were aware of when it comes to accessibility and universal design? So universally designing instruction is not just something that you need to do when you receive the letter from the DRC. Really, if you're building in universal design into your courses sort of from the get-go, then you're saving yourself a lot of time later, which is helpful. And also, you're giving students multiple modalities in the classroom. You're giving them multiple entryways by giving them closed captioning, access to screen reader capable documents and things like that. So you're really just enhancing your instruction. So I hope that going forward we can get some more proactive work done as far as accessibility on campus. And let's see, last question. What kind of outreach does your team do to inform people about accessibility and universal design? So we've got a couple workshops coming up, and I just wanted to sort of plug those real quickly. We have a workshop on September 19th at 3:30. It's a Wednesday, and it's going to be about designing learning outcomes in online courses. Then there's another workshop on Monday the 24th of September at 4 o'clock. That is on teaching and learning in a shifting demographic landscape. So if you wanted to register for any of those or any of our other workshops, you would go to www.uky.edu/CELT and look under events. Finally, if you want to follow us on Twitter, we have a couple accounts. One is at UKCELT, just all spelled out, UKCELT, and then other is for Universal Design, and so that one is at UDL4 UK. And we'd love to have you follow us so we can keep you updated on all of our activities and events. And I appreciate y'all having me out today, and I look forward to hearing from anybody who needs some help with Universal Design. Thanks.
Well, great. I think with that, we're going to bring this session to a close. Thank you, Jennifer, so much for speaking with us today, and thanks again to the Faculty Media Depot for helping us with this video. Look out for details coming soon on our next ITS Spotlight Live, and check your inbox for details on how you can watch this session again or volunteer to speak next in your Bits and Bytes newsletter. Thank you all, and have a great weekend.